I think we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Darian Talks UTSA. It is UTSA versus Memphis week. There's a lot to talk about going into this game. The season obviously hasn't went UTSA's way, but we're still here and we are still alive and kicking. Apologies for the few minutes delay. I wanted to double and triple check my camera, my microphone, and all the things that come with that, just to make sure that we don't have a disaster class as we had last time. And I think we're good to go. If I'm not good to go, please let me know in the chats. But I think we are good to go. I double and triple checked today, right before we went in. So I think we should be good to go. But there's a lot to get into. There's a lot that went on after the game. There's major reaction that sort of came up that I want to react to myself, and then we sort of go from there. So there's a couple big points that I think really signaled what sort of transpired last week in just a gut wrenching game. I went back and looked at some of even my reaction to it, and just I was just looking at my face. I can just see the shout out to Angela. I caught that already. Like and subscribe to the channel. Yes, we got that in a minute and a half into the show. So thanks to Angela for keeping me honest there. Make sure you guys like the channel and subscribe if you are new here. But one of the things I thought that was really just telling is just how disheartening that loss was, right? I think all of us as fans have been waiting and wanting a situation for us to be happy about a game, happy about a performance, happy about a victory, so on and so forth. And against a good, I can't say they're a good team, but we needed that type of performance, and we needed to see some form of dominance, right? We got out to a 35-7 lead in that first half. And, I was even considering not getting on the live or whatever and doing a show, because I'm like, this is probably going to get out of hand. What's going to be the real interest? And of course, I may have jinxed it, but of course, Tulsa fights back and they score 39 points in the second half and ultimately win the game. And obviously, coming from that, there's a lot of people who are reacting about stuff. One of the things I did want to talk about initially was I saw some of the comments from a guest that we've had on the show here, April and Sarah. And I know she's taken a lot of those down. I think that this is still relevant to talk about because I didn't really share a ton of thoughts on that. I've been relatively quiet midweek. I don't like to. At one point, I feel like there was one particular week I feel like I got a little bit too much involved in some of the pre-week, banter, and that's just not my style. I don't want to. I don't know. I feel like a lot of that sometimes can be hurtful to the fan base and hurtful to what the team is trying to drive towards. So I've made the decision to sort of stay out of stuff like that in particular, unless someone's coming directly at me about something. But I do think that one of the things that Miss Ansira called out, she called out NIL, and she called out, that being the reason that we didn't close the game. Listen, I think she was just in her feelings and upset about what was going on. And I think that, I obviously don't agree with that point, right? I think UTSA is behind the curve on NIL 100%. But I also think that, people with a good football eye, and this is not me saying that she doesn't have one, but people with a good football eye can sit there and look and say, hey, based on the talent that we have on the field, against our peers, what game have we been overmatched in all season? Texas notwithstanding. When you look at talent for talent, I'm talking about the ability that the players have on the field. What game have we been overmatched in against talent to talent, from a talent to talent perspective? Not anyone I can think of outside of, like I said, UT. Texas State, they just bludgeoned us. They just beat us. When you look at talent for talent, we have just as much talent as Texas State. Now, they have talent more developed talent in some important, positions than we have, right? But I didn't look on that field and say, hey, we don't have guy talented enough to be on the field with the opposing team, right? So, with regards to her comment on the whole bit about, NIL is the reason we can't sustain the 35 to 7 lead. Respectfully, that's just not the case. That's not the case. Sometimes everything is not about money. Sometimes it's simply about ball. It's simply about football. And to me, that's what's really important. That's what it comes down to more than anything. You can, when those teams, when that clock starts, when it says, 1 second into the game where there's 14 minutes and 59 seconds left on the clock in the first quarter, NIL doesn't matter at that point. What matters is what coaches and what players are available to contribute to success for their teams at that particular time. We were in a position to where we got up 35 to 7, right? If NIL was the issue, that in that realm, we wouldn't have got up 35 to 7. So, like, this is me disagreeing. This is not me being inflammatory. I have not been able to have my say on that. What I will say is a couple things. Number one, and this just is just sort of a message for everybody that's on the Twitters and things like that, big donor or not. I think what we have to also realize is, I feel like we get into trouble and people walk themselves into trouble and unwarranted messages and people being mean and things like that. Can't tell people. There's a couple missteps I think that happened there. And listen, I think April is great for the program. We need her clearly. There's a lot of stuff that's not public that she does for the program in terms of pushing things forward and influencing others to progress the team and progress the program. And I'm not the person to tell that story, but it is a situation where she's hugely valuable to UTSA, and I do understand her being upset about some of this stuff. Now, this does not excuse this. This does not mean that she's beyond criticism of a opinion that she may have, right? I mean, criticism may be the wrong word, but she's not above people having a difference of opinion and, people crapping on something you say. People crap on things I say literally every single time. Just read my comments. Read some of the comments, y'all seen some of the DMs that I get. People crap on me all the time. But one of the things that I think that people get in trouble with doing is trying to police how people fan. This is something I've talked about before, but it seems to be a common theme I see on UTSA Twitter when it gets really toxic. People start telling other folks how to fan. I'm gonna tell you something right now, and it sucks, but it's just the reality of the situation. People are going to talk crap about players. People are going to talk crap about coaches. Period. They're going to call them out by name. They're going to send them DMs. They're going to send them messages. They're going to berate them with insults on Twitter, right? Half of the majority of folks, or at least half the folks on Twitter, are not, you can identify them by their first and last name, right? Everybody is not Darian UTSA on Twitter, right? There's a lot of things, people that is sort of anonymous. You can't police people who are going to be anonymous and they're going to use Twitter like their diary and talk the crap they want. That's their right to do so. You can't censor that. So you have to understand, what the environment is that we're in, and you have to play by those rules. There are no rules on Twitter pretty much. So you can't get offended you can't be upset because someone is, insulting the coach. That's going to happen, and it happens a hell of a lot worse in bigger schools. Way worse in bigger schools. Player scrutiny, way worse at bigger schools. Way worse. Offensive coordinators and all this type of stuff, way worse at bigger schools. So I just think we get in trouble when we try to police folks. Let people fan the way they fan. If you don't like the way they fan, get those folks off your timeline, or choose to not be on Twitter during some of these periods, or just don't say anything. It is what it is. You don't want to associate with those people, don't associate with those people. But it's very difficult whenever we start to do those type of things. So I think that's something that is um that I just that's a takeaway that I got from the drama on Twitter. Also, one other thing too is um and I have to be careful with this one because this is something that some a few folks have asked me to talk about. But what I'll say is we also have to be careful for some of the people in these more powerful positions. Um, it is I don't see any issue with, like, I think flaunting is the wrong word, but expressing where you are, the information you have, and what you're doing and things like that. But just know that sometimes that can make some folks who are not as fortunate feel a little bit belittled by some comments and things like that. I just think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I don't mind it too much, but obviously I've seen a lot of people were sort of upset at some of that. So, it's one of those things about just understand the environment and your place in it. Uh, that's sort of my spiel on the Twitter drama. It was interesting to watch. But I'm gonna jump into your questions right on right now and sort of go from there. All right. Mike says too much emphasis has been directed to NIL this week. I agree it's a problem. Wait, no, he says I agree it's a problem, but not the reason why we lost to Rice and Tulsa. NIL is entirely separate. I feel like it's a way for them to deflect. I agree with this 100%. NIL did not lose us to Rice or Tulsa. I don't think it lost us the game at ECU. And just to kind of paint a picture, we've had a lot of bad losses against teams we were more talented than. You can't tell me we weren't more talented than all of those teams we played. Just pure talent. That shows to me that we aren't connecting the dots in the way that we need to connect the dots, right? We got to connect the dots the proper way. We got to get the guys the ball who need the ball. We got to get people in positions to be able to perform. Now, one thing that is just a reality, we are very injured. We are very banged up. We did lose our corners in that game. And obviously, when you look at the game winning touchdown that they had, they attacked one of our more inexperienced corners at UTSA anyway. So, that's something that I'd much rather them make excuses there. The NIL piece, and I'm not going to go too much more into it, but yeah, I mean, I know this is sort of stemming off of April's comment about NIL being the reason why we lost to Rice. It's not the reason we lost to Rice. It's not the reason, or no, I'm sorry, to Tulsa. It's not the reason we lost to Tulsa, and it's not the reason we lost to Rice. I do feel like some of that threw the players under the bus a little bit. And I do agree with some of the sentiment that felt from there. But I do understand that, like, sometimes whenever we're passionate, we're going to say things that we probably, we're going to get beside ourselves sometimes. And I think that's sort of what she did a little bit. And I also think she has to be able to take the brunt of what the consequences are and be able to take their reaction. I think that's totally fair. But yeah, the NIL being an excuse for those particular games, I think it's too much of it's too much of nothing to me. Those are teams that we should have beat, and we have the players that should be able to progress over those guys. Anthony says, "Hey everyone, birds up. Hope you all have your blackout road running gear for Saturday." Yep, I should be in the building on Saturday, just working out some logistics. If any of you guys got any extra parking passes, let me know. I'm happy to buy one. But yeah, I should be in the house on Saturday. Albert says it's not the reason we lost, but it will be the reason we continue to lose for years to come. I'm assuming you're referring to NIL. Yeah, listen, if we don't get that cleaned up, it's going to be a problem. I feel like right now it's not really, it's not so you can make the case, because I know how bad Coach Traylor wanted to bring in the quarterback. He talked about that publicly. That's not anybody knowing any news. I'm talking about way back whenever Frank lost. He wanted to bring in some experience. Ooh, I need a haircut, guys. But he wanted to bring in some experience. um, yeah, we didn't have the money to be able to get some of those guys. That's just the fact of the matter is, like I said, there's one that we're seeing playing very well for Vanderbilt at the time that we had a shot at, and we just don't have the money to bring those kind of people in. So, yeah, it's going to hurt us for years to come if people don't get on board. It's one of the reasons why I say, like, yeah, I don't think everything April had said. I don't agree with hardly anything she said on the night of that loss, but um, you know, the way I look, if I'm being honest, the way I look at our fan base is I look at you guys as teammates. You know, I look at everybody as teammates. And I consider her a teammate too, although we don't talk. I mean, we've done this show, you know, she gave me some really good advice a few years back on the car business whenever we was getting a business, I was doing some fact finding and and stuff, trying to find ways of how to improve our car business at the time. But other than that, I don't really have a relationship with her like that. But what I will say is I do consider her a teammate. I consider a lot of the folks who that we see on Twitter and go to the games and hang out with at the games as teammates as well. And I think it's one of those situations where you got to help you got to help those people because they are your teammate, and where she comes in as a big teammate is on this NIL journey, right? So for me, it's more about how can we get more people aligned with that, and more people expressing themselves with their pocketbook toward UTSA. I mean, Coach Traylor has called it out. It will hurt us years to come, but it's not, to me, it's not the reason we are 3-5 this season. It's not, though. It's not. Anthony says, Darian, with the news of Booker coming back in some sense, either as a student who or really knows, if he were to get back on the team, how would that make you feel? Good or bad move? I don't know. I don't know the details of the case. I think everybody deserves a benefit of the doubt. And if he wasn't found guilty in that particular case, or he, whatever that case may be, I don't know the details of the outcome of all of that. I seen some stuff come out that you know maybe some things that got shaken up, and he might have didn't really do some of it. I don't know. There's so many conflicting reports that comes out with some of this stuff. You never really know. But I don't want to comment on it being a good or bad move until I know for certain what exactly happened with that situation. Anthony says, I agree with you, Mike, on the NIL point. That is not what the last 3 close games. Yeah, agreed. Sup, y'all. We got issues with our runners. 100%. It's man, it's a lot to discover. I would hope that someone in the chat can hit up Pioneer here and let them know what went on. I was asleep. I went to sleep at like 9:00 that day, so I missed it. But I woke up very early in the morning, and somehow the tweets were still on my timeline, even though they were deleted. So I got to catch up from there, and I got to see the sort of the blowback from that. But I'll let some other folks who were there live and probably seen more comments than I did explain what happened there. Mike says, let's end the season strong. That'd be great if we can. Derek says, yo, Rowdy Smoke Tailgate Lot C5 gonna have the barbacoa and Big Red for early birds 8 to 10 a.m. Also going to do Rowdy Sunrise adult beverage. Also going to have breakfast biscuits from Alamo Biscuit. I want to try Alamo Biscuit. I've never tried it before, so I'm excited for that. I can tell you, for any of you guys who travel, I went to Denver. Denver has a place called Denver Biscuit Company. I highly recommend. I have not. That's probably some of the best breakfast food I've ever had. Um, that place is amazing. So if anybody takes a trip up to Denver, I would advise you to go visit one of the days. Go to Denver Biscuit Company for breakfast or brunch or something like that. You'll enjoy it. You'll thank me later. Derek says, let's go out to the dome and support our runners. Absolutely. Gabe says, yo, Darian, what's up? It's my first time being able to watch live. I love hearing you start the show saying we are live. Keep it real. Yeah, man. Appreciate you for being here, Gabe. Trying to get more people here. I know it is tough during days when we're losing, but we're still going to truck along, and I'm still going to cover these guys like we're undefeated. So I appreciate you for being here. If you would be so kind to like and subscribe to the channel, that'd be great as well. Nathan says, people start telling others how to fan, bro. Facts. Yeah, I don't like that. That's the thing that I do not like the most. It really, really upsets me. It really, really upsets me. And there's a lot of folks, I won't say a lot of folks, but there are a few folks in particular who are pretty popular on in the UTSA fandom of Twitter that that they really try to do that a lot. Um, I've been told how to fan by multiple people, and that upsets me. It upsets me. So that's one thing that frustrates me more than anything. You can't tell people how to fan. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't put a muzzle on people or try to put a muzzle on people. You know, in the world of sports, there are going to be criticisms for coaches. Like this is the nature of it. There was a case and a point being made about, hey, you know, and I hate that this is not me picking on April, but I've seen one of the comments about, hey, I wouldn't go, one of her employees, you won't bring that person up to the front or go on Twitter and berate that person with insults because they didn't do a great job. And it's like, no, but that's not the environment that we're in. Football is here's the thing, football is a sport, but it's entertainment. It's entertainment, right? We do like the people, your stakeholders, since we're going business, your stakeholders and your end users are the people who are viewing and who are coming out and spending money at the games, who are coming out and who are and who are buying and things like that. Like, as long as folks aren't doing anything that's going to physically harm someone or endanger someone and things like that, you got to let those people fan the way they want to. You got to let them people express themselves the way they want to. Honestly, that's what makes people that's honestly what draws people in even more, is because they're upset, they're emotionally invested, and they feel passionate about their team. You can't go out here and tell people how to act and things like that. So, like, the fans are what makes the business run, right? These same fans are the people that we want to donate money to the program so our NIL can be better. We can get in better players and better staff and things like that. So I don't know. We just got to be careful with that, is all I'm saying. Jason says, what do you think of Traylor's interview and his answers in regards to NIL? Listen, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to get to that too. So I'm so glad you brought this up, Jason. So listen, in my opinion, I didn't take his comments the way that I seen. So I read the reactions right after I listened to the comment, but I wanted to go and listen to the entire interview because I wanted to see what was the flow. And the question was asked like if you've seen it just on Twitter, I think the video cuts off. I don't think the video, at least the video, well, I can't say I watched it on Twitter like that. I went and watched it on Inside Run of Sports. Shout out to those guys, JJ and Greg Luca and the crew. But I went to their page and I watched the full 13 minutes and I got to that particular point. And JJ asked him a question specifically about, we've heard about, the large contributions that Memphis is getting. And when you consider that being a thing and you consider where UTSA is at, I think it was a fair question that JJ asked to talk about, what are some of the disadvantages, or is there a disadvantage? And I think Coach Traylor answered that question pretty candidly. And I appreciate that perspective because, yeah, does it sound like he's making an excuse going into the game? Absolutely. I don't like that aspect of it. But when you think about him being asked a question, I'm okay with coaches nowadays taking a more candid approach and letting folks know what's on their mind. Because typically we get the media trained answer to where, like for example, I can go, because we've watched sports and sports interviews for so long, we can all go we can go and do most press conferences for coaches because we know what they're going to say before the question is even answered. Like, you just kind of know already. Like, some coaches, which I think Traylor does give you a little bit more of a clue into some of what UTSA's philosophy is and what guys did wrong and what guys, didn't do right. And he does sort of speak candid in a way, but there are some coaches who are airtight. It's going to be straight media trained answers. And I think he just gave a true thought into what the situation is. Let me just tell you guys this, and I think I said this before, but I'll reiterate this again. These coaches are human, and they aren't naive. They aren't delusional, and things like that. I know for a fact. I've talked to coaches that were previously on UTSA staff, 1,000% from multiple errors. I've talked to folks on that staff, and they knew the limitations. They know the limitations of what their team is going to be able to do, or what their position group is going to be, capable of. I talked to a coach um, about a year or so ago, former coach on the staff. We had a good conversation, and I was asking him about, you know, we hadn't talked in years, but I was asking him about, like, hey man, like, how's it been going and things like that. He was just kind of walking me through, since, I mean, we hadn't talked. It's been a long time, right? But we hadn't talked in a while, and what he sort of told me is, he was like explaining to me through, some of the seasons and some of the schools that he was at and things like that. And what was interesting to me was, like, there was one particular season he talked about where I think that school only won 3 or 4 games, and he said that was one of my most pleasure, like, that was one of the best seasons, because I didn't think we were going to win 3 games. Like, we won 4, and his mindset was, we probably were only going to, based on what they had at their team, they probably were only expected to win 2 games. And he himself was like, I hope we get to 3 or 4, right? Like, I explain that to say, these coaches understand, like, they know what it is. They're not delusional. They know what their situation is. Coach Traylor knows that it is a uphill battle this weekend against Memphis. He knows. He knows. Now, he's the head coach of a team, so how he's going to represent his team, right? He's going to represent his team the best way he can, and represent his team, and give and instill the most confidence in his team. These interviews, he's still coaching. He knows players are going to see these interviews. He's still coaching, right? But what I'll say is, he's a little bit more candid, and he lets you in a little bit more. I think folks should appreciate that. Um, yeah, I'm not a fan of any excuses and things like that. So I'm not saying everything he said was perfect or anything like that. I'm not. But for me, my take was that's an objective. That is an objective thought. That is a thought objectively coming from that head coach. And I actually think he didn't media train that. He just answered it off the dome. And sometimes you may not like what you get, but I'd rather that than a media trained cookie cutter guy who doesn't, let you in on how he's feeling. Mike says, when asked again about injuries, coach mentioned again nutrition seems to be a major factor. They're currently looking for a new one since the one they had, I believe, changed. Major thoughts. Yeah, listen, the nutrition piece needs to be figured out. And yeah, I just think that if that's a problem, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Got to get that spells discipline issues. That spells not even in just the players, but also in what's going on in the program. So you got to get those fixed and get those cleaned up. That could also spell issues of just being under resourced, and that's probably what it is more than anything else. And us not being able to just have the resources to get our guys gourmet dinners every night, or these perfect dinners every night, perfect lunches and things like that. But whatever it is, we got to do better at taking care of our guys and protecting them, and making sure that they get the recovery they need, so we can have a chance to win some games and be able to sustain some of this if we have guys available. Matt says spot on. April is for sure an asset to the program, but talking about NIL discrepancies after a loss to Tulsa is silly. That plays zero factor in the loss. Yeah, I don't think it was a very good moment for her, and it is what it is. We move on. She looks like she's moving on. We move on. Derek says fan is short for fanatic. Don't disagree. Mike says I can't understand why Amador hasn't gotten healthy enough to play. Wonder what's going on with that. My understanding is it's a hamstring. I'll tell you this. One of the things I'll say is one of the things I'll say about the Amador thing is, what I'm noticing is I'm sure it's a hamstring thing, but my question is, we seem to have some folks that are having injuries that are lingering. I have heard rumors, very, very specific rumors about, you know, our training folks making misjudgments and prolonging injuries and things like that. I don't know. It just brings up a question. It just brings up a question. I wonder what's going on with that. Olivia says people need to relax. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, even if it's starkly different than yours. But I didn't like the attacks she received. Disrespect is never warranted. I like to see those attacks. I didn't see. So I missed so much of it. I didn't because I seen when she came back. She said, or some folks were saying she was attacked. Um, I must have missed that. I must have missed that. I seen a lot of people in disagreement with her. I didn't see any attacks though. And listen, I don't think I think there's no room for attacks. So to the extent that she was being attacked, yeah, can't happen. Can't happen. And shame on folks, shame on whoever attacked her. Can't do it like that. If it's anything malicious or anything like that, can't happen. Can't happen. Oh, shout out to Albert. We got a super chat. Shout out to Albert. These get priority. Albert says from 9 to 10:30, April will be selling bird chains near the entrance of the Spirit Walk. All proceeds go to UTSA football athletes, $32 plus tax. Well, there you go. Get you a bird chain. Shout out to Albert for the super chat. Thank you so much, man, for doing this. I gave away pretty much all of my earnings on last week's show or on this past weekend show. So yeah, we starting back from ground zero, but we gonna get it, baby. Let's see. Olivia says, "Oh no." Sal says exactly. I'm tired of people calling everyone a fake fan and using their platform to shame them. UTSA Twitter has turned toxic at this point. It is very toxic. It's very toxic. That's why I said I will selectively participate. But I've chosen to sort of be a little bit more strategic on what I comment on and what I don't comment on because it gets toxic fast and it's not helpful. Pioneer says without adequate NIL, we deserve to be demoted to FCS. We can't compete with the big boys on a minimum wage budget. No, I don't want us to be demoted to the FCS. I don't think we need to be demoted to the FCS. We aren't an FCS team. We should be beating the teams that we're beating. I think there's just other issues going on. And then we go from there. But FCS, no. Let's see. Jason says, what I'm about to pull up the C5. LMAO, Pioneer, I mean that in a competitive sense. Nah, I think FCS is too low. Texas says, skip this if you already mentioned, but what do you hope to see from UTSA this week? Perfect. I'm happy that you brought this up. I spent a little bit of time looking at Memphis. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, it don't look good for us going into this game. I'm just calling a spade a spade. But what I will say is Memphis, their defense can be a little leaky, depending on the situation. They've given up quite a few points this year. Charlotte had some success on them last week. That game. I mean, Charlotte had that game in hand late, and Memphis made a comeback to win. But even still, Memphis puts up points. They're probably going to put up a good amount of points on our defense. Offensively, listen, I mean, I have to give our offense credit. We did execute some last week, and I thought we looked really, really good in that first half. Obviously, it went downhill after that, but some of the things that you could see from Tulsa defensively, I came out and said it before the game. We were going to exploit Tulsa very big through the air, and did we not? Tulsa's secondary was terrible. That's just a fact. We threw for 443 yards. I'm not surprised one bit. And that's just sort of the nature of the beast. So you can see that glaring in Tulsa's game and what they put on tape. Memphis is just they're very good offensively, pretty much everywhere. We have our work cut out for us. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Especially when you think about coming off a loss like we came off of. It's gut wrenching. And anytime you have a situation like that, I hate to be like this, but things go downhill after losses like that. And I don't mean to. I'm not saying that that is going to happen. But it very well could. And that's unfortunate, but it's just the truth. But yeah, I mean, listen, Memphis throws the ball very well. They run the ball very well. Offensively, they're balanced. They can do what they want. They can beat you in either way. Like I said, defensively, they're not. They'll give up some yards. North Texas put up 653 yards against them, 445 through the air, which I think is very, very significant. Obviously, when you look at what Charlotte did to them, 303. Well, 303 yards is not great, but that's Charlotte. There was another game that gave up a lot of points or gave up a lot of yards that like really popped out to me. I think it was earlier this year. It was Navy. Yeah, Navy with 566 had 361 rushing yards against them. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be a tough game. What I want to see from UTSA is I'd like to see. Listen, it seems like Coach Traylor he's really behind his quarterback. I'd like to see more consistency from that from our QB. Listen, what I'll say is I think he's playing a lot better, even though I think we've played some teams that caters to teams that can pass. They're not good at pass coverage. But I will say that I think he has taken steps forward each game for probably the last 4 games or so. So I think you like to see him continue to take another step up. And the reason I say that is because that's going to, wherever he's at, is going to sort of be the floor, right, of what's going to be acceptable for next year. So I want him to be as good as he possibly can. I want him to be a little bit more consistent. I think one of the things is, down the stretch, he missed some passes that we just got to have. And it's things that he admitted, coach admitted after the game. And I think we've seen that consistently throughout the year. Like whenever we need to really, really execute in pivotal downs, on third downs, on fourth downs late in the game, we aren't able to execute those. A lot of our success, a lot of our success has been predicated around the first half. We haven't had a ton of success in the second half. So we'll see. I'd also like to just see us sustain a high level of play. Can we put together 2 halves? Can we put together 2 halves of football? I don't care what the score is. Can we put together 2 halves? Not bonehead stuff. The penalties again, guys. I mean, I don't know what to say about the penalties. At this point, that's just who we are, right? We had 12 penalties for 129 yards, more than a football field, of penalties. Unacceptable. You spilled blood for the runners. You sir can fan any way you want to. Appreciate that. But all of you guys can fan the way you want to as well. Me playing for the runners and spilling blood or whatever has nothing to do with how we should fan. I don't think anybody should be policed unless they're being malicious. Mike says, will the new revenue share program coming in 2025 even the playing field in regards to NIL make money? I've heard many schools have combined NIL collectives. Yeah, I think that we're missing an opportunity in combining NIL collectives. But here's the thing: we'll do it at some point, but it's gonna take, like, we lag behind the bigger schools. A lot of the bigger schools are starting to do that, and they're centralizing efforts because what they're realizing is you could probably do more if you pull your resources together. Because a lot of these collectives, I don't know if they don't have a ton of resources to do some of the things that they want to do themselves. So I think people collectively coming together, hopefully that happens at some point. But I don't know. You gotta see what happens. The money share, the revenue share thing. We'll see how that folds into it. But I don't know how much that's going to solve our problems. I'll say that. It's still too early to see. I mean, we haven't even seen some of the bigger schools get into some of that yet. So we'll see. Carpenter looks great as senior needs more punt returns. Carpenter has had a pretty good season, man. To be honest, like, it's funny. Like, coming into last season, I said that I remember saying that this was a year ago, so this was last season. I thought Carpenter was going to have a breakout year. Then, seems like he's having that this year, and shout out to him for doing that. He's doing well. Marcus Sosa says, Darren, I've got an extra parking pass if you need. Yeah, man, 100%. I will definitely get back to that DM after the show. Appreciate you. Matt says, fake fan. Fake fan has got to be the lamest term ever, and agree. Let fans fan however they want. All support is welcome. Yeah, I agree with this for the most part. Like I said, unless someone is being overly malicious and doing stuff like that, then I would say that's out of bounds. And you certainly don't want people being attacked and things like that. But if people are going to call out people, like saying someone sucks at their job is not attacking somebody. And I'm talking. I'm not referencing April's post or anything like that. I'm talking about like saying, "Hey, I don't like the quarterback. He sucks." That's okay. It's just maybe insensitive, right? you know, hey, our offensive line sucks or something like it may be insensitive, but that's what it is. How people fan. Hey, I don't like the offensive coordinator, Burke. He's not getting it. We should hire a new coordinator. I've said that multiple times here. I don't think that's egregious in the world of sports in this environment. So as long as it doesn't get too out of hand, like I don't see a problem with it. Like as a player, even back in the day, whenever I was playing, like UTSA Twitter wasn't as crazy as it is now. But dude, I think I switched. I switched Twitter to something. I want to say I switched Twitters back in the day because I was getting so much crap. Well, I switched Twitter for another reason too, but I was getting a lot of crap on the forums and like even the way Twitter was worked back then. Yeah, bro, it's bad, and I know it's even worse for the guys now. But like, people find a way to get their messages to you. But it's part of it. It's part of it. All those guys, even in high school, people get scrutinized. Like especially depending on where you come from. Like, shoot, you play football in a town that has a big fan base. You're going to be dealing with scrutiny from that age as well. So, that's just part of it. What are your thoughts on Blackshire? I like to see more of him. That's more of my thoughts. I like to see more of him. I thought I've seen him make a couple of plays whenever he's played, but I've also seen him, make some mistakes that late hits and things like that. But I would like to see more from him. I like to see more from him. He's obviously has the physique to play anywhere. He looks like he has the speed and athleticism to be a good player, but I want to see more from him. It looks like we're at the end of the questions. Yeah, I should be around right now if plans stay the same. I will be at the Memphis game, so I will definitely be out there at the tailgate, seeing folks bright and early in the morning. I think folks last week was telling me 8 to 10 a.m. is sort of that sweet spot. So I'll be there then and hope to see a lot of you guys at some of the tailgating at this weekend. But yeah, if I didn't get to a question, or if you have any more questions, you want to just chat a little bit more, feel free to shoot me a DM. Feel free to shoot me a message on Twitter. I always try to respond to those. There's a few of you that I talk to all the time. So keep sending your questions, comments, and thoughts in. I try to get to as many of those as I possibly can. But really, really appreciate you guys for being in attendance today. This is awesome. Hopefully we go in and put up a good performance against Memphis, but we'll see. Either way, I'll be doing a post-game show at the weekend, so stay tuned for that. I'll give you guys details on Twitter of when I will do that. It'll probably be Sunday because if I'm traveling to San Antonio for the game, it's probably going to be difficult for me to come back home, get everything set up, and give you guys a post-game show. So probably Sunday morning this week is when I'm going to do a post-game recap. Either way, see you guys. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your nights. I'm signing off. Peace.